Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, this is particularly true of the entertainment business because while there are jobs and job titles that can seemingly have some crossover depending on what you're working on, there when when it takes when it goes to a different level, some jobs just hit different. And you know, if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because quite frankly, you're listening right now. And if you are, I appreciate that, but I need you to do something for us. I need you to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere, places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel, so if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, we're on the Twitter, we're on the Instagram, we're on the Letterboxd, we're on the TikTok, and, well, hell, we're probably at a few other places too. At In the Seats, for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large, because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it even more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So do us that kindness and pay us a visit. On this episode, we got another interesting one. We are diving into the world of variety television, which is, well, it's a wild one, to say the least. And we're going behind the scenes into the day-to-day life and a little bit of the weirdness that goes on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah. And, you know, it's, as always, I love that show. I know you love that show. And we're having, we have the unique pleasure of sitting down with some of the Emmy nominees behind that show, particularly the editing team, or one of the members of the editing team, because they are all nominated for Outstanding Picture Editing for a variety program. And we, like I said, we talked to one of them. The man's name is Storm Choi, and we got a little bit of insight on editing for a show like The Daily Show, which I can imagine is a higher stress job than just doing film or television or anything like that. It's almost like doing the news. He told us some wild stories from it all, and just sort of the creative payoff of getting to work on such a high octane show like The Daily Show, and just particularly working with somebody like Trevor as well. He gave some really good insight on sort of the industry and the job, because it definitely feels like that kind of thing where you're diving into a foxhole with people going to battle every night to sort of make the best possible entertainment. And I know this hardworking editing team certainly does that as well, and that's why they're nominated for an Emmy for the 2003 Emmys. But enjoy our talk with Storm and just really allow yourself an extra level of appreciation for what goes into making a show like The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, because as much as we think we know, we really don't. And getting to talk to Storm was a unique pleasure. It just certainly opened my eyes and made me appreciate the hard work that those men and women do each and every night. But, you know, that's it for me. Enjoy our talk with Storm Choi, the one of the Emmy-nominated editors for Outstanding Picture Editing for a Variety Program, because between you and me, this is a darn good conversation. It's an even better show, so enjoy, because I know I did.
Hey, David.
Hey, Storm, how you doing today, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, man. First off, man, I just want to say I appreciate the time today. I thank you for that, and I just, congratulations for your work on the show.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much.
Now, I mean, here's the first question. It might be a loaded question, but I've got to ask it. It feels like
there's editing for TV and movies, and then there's editing for something like The Daily Show, which feels like it's probably turned up to about, to borrow a Spinal Tap reference, you've probably turned it up to 11.
Yes, you're very right about this. I mean, God, when we talk about deadlines, like not only is it a daily deadline for the show, but we're talking rehearsal, this. But I mean, first of all, I just want to state that there's such a range of pieces that we cut for the show.
Sure, yeah.
Some of them are cut over weeks. Some of them, are literally last minute with breaking news. And I mean, but then aside from even just the things that you see on every episode, like the desk and the interview, I mean, we have mock commercials, ads, musical performances. We cut characters into movie scenes. We like so many of these things that we think of the day of, these quick turnaround pieces that are just so different in how they how you approach them editing. It is truly, I mean, the category is correct, variety. There's such a range of things that we do on this show that makes it a challenge, but also makes it fun. It's not boring,
I mean,
and
I'm kind of curious because obviously this is an editor's room. You're not only editor. Like, how do you just kind of divvy up work and sort of manage the workflow of it all? Because I mean, again, it feels like almost quite literally you're in a newsroom.
yeah, actually, that would be a great analogy for that, is actually being in a newsroom. But I would say that we have a great, not just editors, we have a great post team in general, which I can't imagine being able to manage all of us and our different personalities and stuff. But to give a shout out to the team, like everyone is very down and egoless and willing to do whatever it takes. Take me off of it. A lot of these changes happen day of. Be like, whoops, stop what you're doing. Let's do this. Stop what you're doing. Let's do this. And of course, things go in the order of urgency of like the day's work. But like what there is not room for is the mindset of, but we've always done it this way. So like we're just gonna keep it this. Like you have to be willing to change and be flexible. And our team is, we have there's not a bigger range of personalities in this quirky room that we have, but we are all very tight. I mean, there's my team is extremely talented, and everyone's willing to play ball in that way with flexibility.
No, I mean, I'm curious, like, how close have you guys had to cut it sometimes? Like, are audience members in their seats as you're still working, or like how close?
Many times, and especially in the Trump era. I mean, my God, like when it comes to Donald Trump, he just had a bad habit of saying something insanely stupid or doing something crazy in middle of the afternoon, which is like the worst time for us. Like if it happens in the morning, you have time to get it done, or if it happens in the evening, it's not going to get on the show. But so many times it was just like, all right, Donald Trump just did this. Throw out all of your work for the day. We're going to restart the show. And those days become crazy. And how close have we cut it? Like, it's not so much for the taping, but the closest calls have been for the delivery.
Right.
So after taping, maybe taping goes long or something happens, and then we have to cut the show down to time, fix some things up. And what I mean is always generally the culprit is some technical problem. Like for some reason the computer starts getting a personality, or things just go backwards, and suddenly you're like, oh wow, it's 9:30. Like, and then because what we really want to allow is enough time to deliver the show and then leave room for being like, hey, being the NOC saying, oh, we noticed there was a mistake or something that we needed to fix and refeed, because that happens once in a while, and that's always the goal, is try to leave enough time to deliver it and to turn around a fix.
I hadn't even thought of it that way, but I mean, I can imagine sort of that 3 PM mark was a tense time for editors' rooms all across all of these shows, depending on what Trump may say at any given time.
I mean, everyone's tied into text and email and Twitter. So you have these producers in the room, and if everyone's phone starts exploding at 3 p.m., it's not good. Like something's going on that's going to throw off your day. Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm curious, like, how did you ultimately get into this biz? Because, I mean, obviously, like I said at the beginning, like, editing for film or TV is one thing, but I can imagine jumping into the Daily Show world is a different animal.
Yeah. Strangely, my background is well suited for the variety of it, but I'm trying to think of how far back I should start in terms of how I got into editing. But it was never a goal of mine, certainly in college, I studied classical music, and I was a musician and creative writing. And then I spent my time in my 20s traveling and focusing on photography. But then when I wanted to get in, I really wanted to get into film and TV, so I applied for the MFA film programs. And when applying to Columbia University, I didn't have a short film or a screenplay. I'd never done these things, so like I applied with a photography portfolio, a music composition, and a short story, being like, well, here are all the elements to movies, like maybe. And so and I was accepted. So while I was at Columbia, I studied directing and cinematography, so not editing. I couldn't even turn a Mac on. I remember the first time I looked at those G3s, I was like, where's the on button? Like I quickly realized going through the MFA program that without editing skills, nothing was going to happen. Like you can shoot all you want, but unless you can piece it together, you need to find someone else to do it. So I decided to kind of face my fear of like technology and stuff like that. And really editing is both a craft and an art, right? There's an innate art that you feel story, but there is a craft. You need to be technically proficient, and the craft is mainly rooted in software. So, once I realized that, it was less daunting, and I'm like, it's just software. I can learn this, and so I really kind of spent a lot of time studying editing. And at that point in Columbia, we were using Final Cut Pro. So I learned everything there was about Final Cut Pro. And then I got a job as an assistant editor. And it was a union job. So I had to join, the local union, MPEG. And when I was there signing up, they were like, oh, this is our training room over here. We hold courses for editors, whether in different programs and stuff. And I said, like, I have a lot of teaching experience. So I said, if you ever need a teacher in Final Cut Pro, let me know. I'd be happy to do it. So a week later, I get a phone call, and they're like, oh, we heard you could teach After Effects. And I'd never even seen the program. I never used the program. But, as the beginning editor, I just needed, some ins to the industry. So I was like, yeah, I can do this. And they're like, well, when can you start? I'm like, 4 months. Like, let me finish this job. And luckily in this AE job, it was not luckily, but it was an overnight AE job. And so in the hours between getting home at like 4 a.m. to when my wife woke up, I just studied every book on After Effects animating that I could possibly do. And at the end of these 4 months, I had a reel and also enough expertise to start teaching. So actually, I came into industry kind of sideways, is as an animator and doing motion graphics and animations. So a lot of my first job, like actually my first job was just all through that. I was hired to do the animations for the last season of the Sopranos promos. And then in the middle of that, the editor got a job on a film, and they're like, oh, we need an editor. Can you edit? And I was like, sure. And so I kind of just jumped into the editing chair right there and started cutting the last season of the Sopranos promos. And I think I did a lot of short form initially. So all of my initial editing work, there was a variety and range to it, because mainly I was hired because of my graphic skills and my animation skills. So I was doing the commercials, advertisements, all these different things.
Right.
But certainly before I started The Daily Show, the last projects I'd done was the film Lost in the Sun and 14 Minutes to Earth. So I was doing feature films, and that's where I thought I was going to be settling. When I got offered the job at The Daily Show, it was going to be such a left turn, and such a different thing. But I mean, truly, I enjoy the variety. It's fun for me, and so yeah, I think kind of my past is a little different than others, but like I have such a range of things that I did that it feels refreshing to go back to cutting a fake commercial or doing something like that.
No, I mean, I'm curious. I mean, on a show like this, I mean, I know, when the show is running, it's like a 4-day week, but I can imagine it's a hell of a day. Like, walk me through sort of a show day. Like, what is it, like a 12, 14-hour day?
Gosh, from I start, the editors generally get in a bit later than the initial producers and writers. Like, I think they start their day, gosh, I think around 8 or 9, probably the night before. Actually, they have a meeting the night before about stories that they potentially want to cover. So by the time I get in there, they've already kind of had a morning meeting, and they've already started the process of figuring out what's on the show.
Right.
The show each act is kind of assigned to an editor the day of, so you can really be doing, I mean, a range of things in 1 week. You will not be doing the same thing every single day, but like and so depending upon what act you're in, and if there are any day of builds or stuff like that, you work on that, and everything's a rush to rehearsal. And then after rehearsal, everything's a rush to taping. Like you scramble and you readjust because everything gets rewritten at that time. Post taping is when each editor kind of like makes the changes and cuts down the acts. And this is where the real sprint begins, because now we have a real hard deadline in delivering.
Yeah.
And so as each act gets finished, they get QC'd and they get passed back to me. And I assemble kind of the final sequence, do a list of checks, and then the way we feed to the show is we feed directly to the NOC through a fiber line. So we play the show out, and then, that's kind of where we would notice any last things that are urgent that we see. I mean, we should have caught everything by then, but in case something slips through, that's kind of the point I told you, that we'd love to have time to deliver it and then fix something and re-deliver the show. So at that point, we're around 9:00 p.m.
So how late, like theoretically, is the upload for you, like when to deliver? Like how late has it been?
Okay. So
when should it be, or when has it been? I guess is probably the best way to put it.
I can give you two episodes, two instances where it was really one of those things where I called my wife and like, turn on Comedy Central, did we make it? Like that kind of a thing. One was, I think, in 2019 or 2018, where we were in Chicago. So the Daily Show was in Chicago, but we were delivering the show from New York. And so one thing that we do is we do come up with different, like, as our tech evolves, we have different workflows we hit the road for conventions and midterms and stuff like that. And that day, this is a mistake we didn't make again, but we were transferring raw footage from Chicago to New York, vice versa, and it was just the internet wasn't, our capabilities weren't where they should be. And I mean, we were feeding our last act, I think, at like a 10 something. I mean, it was we were really, really tired. It was one of those moments, because the thing is, once we feed the show to the NOC, they have to buffer it. I think closed captioning happens live, but it's not like they have it and then they're like, okay, we're safe. They have their own steps that they need to do. And that one was really one that we knew Act 1 was in, but we were like, did we get everything else in time? And luckily we had. The next story is actually all my fault. It was, and you might remember this. It was an episode a lot of people remember. It was during the pandemic when we were back on air, and the first big interview we did was Anthony Fauci.
Oh shit! Okay.
So you had a long interview here, but this is also at the start of like us using Zoom and stuff like that, and like the Zoom technology was just glitchy at that time, and it also depended on what his internet connection was with and so forth. And I think we're more used to seeing footage play like this now, but it would fall out of sync, it would get caught up and get back in sync. And it was one of those things. I remember talking to our post super, Fiona, and I was like, I watched the interview and I was like, oh gosh, I don't know if I could let it go out this way. Like, how much time do I have to fix this? And she's like, 30 minutes, but I mean 30 minutes. Like, you have to be at the truck handing this thing off. And like, and this is where my computer decided to screw me, and just got frozen, had to restart it. Then I finally got it done, synced it up, got marginally better. It wasn't even that big of an improvement. I delivered the drive, and this was during the pandemic. There was a satellite truck parked outside my apartment. So the way we actually delivered the show is I put it onto a drive, ran it out to the truck. We did this dance where I kind of left it there, then he picked it up. And I'm like, okay, we got it in. Then he calls me and he's like, there's no audio on this act. And I'm like, oh my God, like somehow my computer was just killing me that day. So I had to go back, re-deliver it. And at that point, I mean, we're well past 10 o'clock. So what we did was, normally, I think we play out the episode, it goes to the NOC, and then they then send it out to Viacom, all the Hulu and all the other places that then play it. And then they played it out live that day because I think we were out of time. So like they just played the episode like from the truck, and then it broadcast that way.
Is the creative payoff for you like just the chaos of it? Because I mean, again, like you were even saying, like you were here during the pandemic years, and I mean, you had a truck outside your house. Trevor was in his apartment. I can imagine. This is the kind of assemblage that you will never probably see again, or at least want to see again.
That was a year and a half to remember for sure. And I mean, yes, I am someone who can find satisfaction in a job well done, and the feeling at the end of the day that like, this whole team from start to finish, we started writing this thing, then we conceived it, shot it, got it out the door, and made some people laugh. That is satisfying to me. But I think the real satisfaction I feel is I think sometimes, at least for me, I can divide my job sometimes in black and white. And I think sometimes it's important to do this is, am I making the world, did I add something good to the world or did I add something ugly? You know? And I've never had that question while working on this show. You know, like I feel like I'm doing something good. I feel like we're all doing something good and something that's important. And maybe though I feel this way because it was important to me even before I got this job. You know, the show informed me through my college years in a way that, you know, the journalism didn't. And yeah, it's I'm very grateful to be a part of this now. Yeah. That's
No,
the only thing that got away.
no, I mean, I'm curious because I mean, obviously, this show, I mean, through Craig, through John, through Trevor, has had such a legacy to it. And I mean, I'm kind of curious from your end, and especially sort of in the editing room now with the nominations, like, how do you think? I guess maybe Trevor's era will be remembered when it comes to the Daily Show because as much as it's all similar, there are subtle differences every time.
Yeah, yeah. You know, my whole Daily Show experience was Trevor. So I started right after the election in
Right.
2016. I was with him through Trump, pandemic, Black Lives Matter, and so forth. And I can say that I think Trevor is a uniquely talented human being. Like he's a brilliant man. And as time moves forward and we're able to look backwards on this, I really think we're going to see the true impact he had on late night, you know, and the true impact he had on comedy because of his perspective. And this is always the most interesting thing with talking to him was how he saw things. And, you know, part of that's his upbringing, part of that is, you know, just his innate personality. But the diverse POV that we were able to offer was something that I think late night TV and comedy desperately needed. And we don't even know that we desperately needed it. But like if you look at the impact, perhaps post Trevor and pre Trevor, what it was like pre Trevor, I think he's made a huge difference. In,
Yeah.
you know, and I mean, especially during the Black Lives Matter, I think, you know, talking to a lot of my friends who were that was the voice they needed in a lot of ways, you know. It's the way he sees it, especially with his upbringing, was so different. So I feel very lucky to have been here during Trevor's time, and you can't have this sort of impact and not leave a permanent mark on the show. You know, somehow we are a different show because of this, you know, and yeah, I just feel very lucky to have been a part of his time.
Now, I mean, honestly, man, I'm so happy that I got to talk to you just because the whole process behind this fascinates me. And it kind of feels like this is the kind of bucket list job that on one end you could never hope to have, but like 20 years down the line, this is the one you'll be looking back on fondly for all the good times and the bad. And I mean, I'm kind of curious at the end of the day, for you as a professional in this business, is that the kind of payoff that really matters? Because it really feels like shows like this and moments like this allow for such camaraderie, especially sort of in the editor's room, in the production room. Because I mean, again, and it feels like in many ways, from 8 o'clock in the morning when people go in, you guys are going to war to make a funny and entertaining, but you know, informative show all at the same time.
Yeah, you said it really well there. You know, it this is definitely the closest I've never before. The most important thing to me, the job is important, but I think when I've in my moments of like life and death, never have I thought I'm so glad I did this job or I'm so bad that I did this job. It just doesn't matter to me, you know.
Right.
But what I do think about is the people in my life. And
Right.
I've never worked a job before, nor do I expect to work one afterwards, where I work with such close friends. Like, I mean, it is truly like a family more so than any other job I've ever had. And if you bring that down to the editing team, it's even more apparent. You know, we have such a wide range of personalities, but we're so tight, you know, and so close. And I mean, I can say very, very, very strongly, I love these people, you know, like truly they've made an impact in my life. I'm a better person because of the friends that I've made on the show. And God, I mean, on top of just being such wonderful people, they're such talented individuals that I get to work with every day. And no matter how crazy your day gets, for at least a portion of your day, you're going to be spending time with people that you'd be doing it if you were off, like I don't know how you place a value on that, of just like, of enjoying what you're doing and enjoying the people that you're around.
For sure. No, but I mean, Storm, man, honestly, thank you for giving me a little bit of insight into just sort of the foxhole that is editing on shows like this. And I mean, I can imagine there are days where it's you're just elbow to elbow and going at it, but you're going at it for the greater purpose. And I mean, honestly, man, just congrats on the nomination, congrats on the work, and thank you again so much for the time today.
I really appreciate talking to you, and it was a great time talking.
Likewise, man. All right, talk to you soon.
Thanks so much. Take care.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.